Hey, Kai here. Before we begin this episode, I just wanted to come on and give a short note. Your Florida Man Friday obviously usually goes out on Friday. This one is coming out today because yesterday I did end up having to go to the doctor, and so that kind of pushed everything back. But I didn't want you to miss out on your episode, so it's coming out just a day late. Please be patient with me and please forgive me. But without further ado, here is your Florida Man Friday episode. In today's episode, I bring you two short cases. The first is an act of bravery in a very scary situation, and the second is one that hits home, to me, a bit too closely. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to your Florida Man Friday episode. If you are new here, hi, this is Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, and I am your host, Kai. If this is your first visit, like I said, please go ahead and listen to this episode, and if you like it, please go ahead and follow me so you don't miss any more true crime cases. If you're a returning lamb, thank you so much for being here. And I want to remind everyone that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. If you want to be a sponsor of Love and Murder, help support the show, get extras and all of that, then just go ahead and sign up to Patreon.com/Love and Murder and become an exclusive lamb. Now, let's get into your Florida Man Friday. So the first one that I have for you is a Florida man who stabbed an intruder to death after his wife was shot in the face. On May 16th, 2024, a 69-year-old Florida man acted in self-defense, fatally stabbing an intruder who shot his wife in their Avon Park home. All of this happened when 62-year-old Lindsey Glenn tricked the couple into letting him inside of their home. Once inside, Lindsey pulled out a gun and shot the woman in the face, obviously causing severe injuries. But she was not dead. However, in a heroic and desperate attempt to defend his wife, the husband grabbed a 7-inch garden knife and repeatedly stabbed Lindsey, ultimately killing him. The woman, while all this was going on, managed to get over to the neighbor's house and get some help, and the husband had some minor injuries in his struggle with Lindsey. When police arrived at the house, they found Lindsey dead from the multiple stab wounds, and Sheriff Paul Blackman described the result of the struggle, stating, quote, "Once armed with a knife, he went to work on Mr. Lindsey Glenn. Glenn was cut to pieces and very much deceased by the time deputies could get to him." The woman is reported to be in stable condition at a local trauma center, and her husband was treated for the minor injuries before being released from the hospital. Authorities have praised the husband's quick thinking and bravery during the violent encounter. Quote, "I would like to commend the male victim for his bravery and quick action in defending his wife and their home." Now, this Lindsey actually had a long history of criminal activity with convictions dating back to 1979. And he's 69. Is there an age where you stop? I'm just wondering. Is there an age where you stop? You are 69 years old. Still? Sheriff Blackman said that Lindsey had been convicted of at least 12 felonies over the years, including burglary and robbery. These convictions resulted in Lindsey serving multiple prison sentences. The Highlands County Sheriff Office is investigating the incident, but no charges are expected to be filed against the husband, as it's being considered a clear case of self-defense. The Sheriff's Office has used this opportunity to remind the community about the importance of being vigilant and cautious when interacting with strangers, especially when it involves granting people access to your home. When somebody knocks on your door, look through the peephole, ask who it is. If you don't have a peephole, don't just open the door. If they're saying delivery and you're not expecting a delivery, don't open the door. I'm pretty sure there are other ways that people could fool you into letting them into your house, but the obvious ones, you expecting a delivery, you expecting a maintenance man or not expecting one, and somebody comes and says, "Maintenance, you had a gas leak. Somebody called about a gas leak," something like that. No. Do not let them in. And that is the case of a man who chose the wrong one. Okay, so he was 62 and the Florida man was 69. I guess he just chose the wrong family that day. And he's been doing this since 79. I'm surprised it lasted that long. And my thing is, again, you're 62. When is the end game? Like, That's ridiculous. And what do y'all think about that episode? Can you imagine a 62-year-old literally just making his life out to be a criminal, and he's still doing the same thing at 62? Can y'all imagine that? The second story is a Florida man escapes from a mental health facility and gets shot by the police. This is something that, like I said in the beginning, is near and dear to my heart because I do know people who are going through mental health issues, and they do have times when they're hallucinating, not in their right mind, and they're actually out running the streets. So this actually is something that is very scary to me because it's a real, it could happen to anybody. But let me tell you what happened. It's not like the police shot them in cold blood, so let's get into it. On August 23rd, 2024, a 23-year-old man suffering from a mental health episode was critically wounded by Ocala police after running away from a mental health clinic. The young man, whose name had not been publicly released due to his mental health status, had been taken to the Vines Hospital by his family for a, quote, mental health intervention, but soon ran away. The man was described as, quote, acting erratically and was located by police about 10 minutes after he ran from the clinic. According to Deputy Chief Lou Biondi, the man was armed with bear spray and a knife. Where did he get bear spray from? And if he's in a facility, where did he get the knife from? So, of course, this was an immediate threat to the responding officers. Quote, they were there for some time, and then her son didn't want to stay there, and he left on foot. Mom called us for some help. Despite police attempts to de-escalate the situation through negotiations, the man started making statements saying that he wanted to kill himself. Officers attempted less lethal measures, including using a taser and firing 40-millimeter rounds, which are actually less fatal. But these efforts didn't deter the man, and they had to move on to stronger measures. Biondi said, quote, the officers did everything they can to deter him from any of that, meaning taking his life, as the man charged towards an officer and, quote, he was spraying the officers as he charged towards the one officer with a handgun. The officer was forced to fire multiple rounds, striking the man. Now, imagine that. He's spraying bear spray, which I'm pretty sure is way more potent than just pepper spray. And he's such in a mental state that he's spraying it and literally running into the spray, and he's still going. How scary would that be? So even though they did try other measures, I can understand why this officer was forced to protect himself. Quote, at that point, the officer with the handgun fired multiple rounds and subdued the subject. As soon as that happened, officers then went into life-saving measures and did everything they can to apply first aid while medics were en route. Preston Barr, who witnessed everything, the intense moments and everything leading up to the shooting, described how the officers pleaded with the man to drop the weapons. Quote, the cop was holding the gun and there was another cop holding the taser on him. And then he described the man charging at the officer while spraying the bear spray. And then he saw that with this, that did force the officer to open fire. Quote, he got tased and he started to immediately run towards the cop that had his gun drawn on him, spraying him while he's running with the knife in his hand. And then he got shot. After being shot, the 23-year-old was rushed to a nearby hospital where he underwent several surgeries. Although he was critically injured, police later stated that he was expected to survive. Now, just a little input from me. To me, they really did everything they could to subdue him and to not use lethal measures. So I agree with everything that happened, but wait till you hear the end. Wait till you hear the end. It was all okay, I understand until I got to the end. Chief Biondi said, quote, ideally, in any situation we're dealing with someone who might be having a mental health episode, we assess them for criteria for the Baker's Act. This is a worst case scenario. None of us wake up in the morning saying, this is the day I'm going to use lethal force on somebody. But yes, they did everything by their training and by protocol for this incident. Now here goes the weird part. The 23-year-old man now faces charges of aggravated assault and aggravated battery on a law enforcement officers. and investigations into the shooting are ongoing. As for his family, quote, they were doing everything they could to get him to the receiving facility, which they did. It's just that he didn't want to be there. And to me, this story, this case sheds light on the dangers and kind of like the complexities of managing a mental health crisis, especially when the person becomes a threat to themselves and becomes a threat to others. Now, like I said, I think everything was done based on what was given, because sometimes what was given isn't actually what happened. But I'm going to say based on what was given, I feel like everything was done correctly. But my thing is, why are you charging this man that you know is under mental health treatment or should be under mental health treatment? Why are you charging him for aggravated assault and aggravated battery like he knew, like he was in his right mind and knew exactly what he was doing and still came after police? You know you're dealing with a man with mental health issues. You've said it all through your reports and everything like that to the point that you won't even name this man, but then screw all that, let's charge him. Like that part makes absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense. So then when he does get help and he has medicine in him and he comes down and everything like that. And he's just like, why am I here? Why am I jailed? Why am I, unless you give these charges and it's there to keep him in a mental health facility to force him to get help. That's the only reason I could see charging him with that. Like it's a workaround to keep him in the mental health facility. Other than that, I don't understand why you're charging him. So what do y'all think about that one? Do y'all agree with me or do you understand why he's being charged? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But like I said, that one really hit close to home because I do know people going through the same thing and I just don't understand why. That's really scary. And let's go through your comments for the last Florida Man Friday. So I did put out a poll. This was for the 13-year-old honor student who murdered his mother and then sent bloody pictures to his friend. I will have the links to that in the show notes below if you did miss that. So the poll I put out was, do you think Derek did this to his mother due to a mental break or out of malice? And one person answered the poll and they said they were on the fence. They didn't know, which is the same way I feel. Like there's not enough information for me to say it was a mental break. And there's not enough proof to say it was out of malice because everybody's saying he was such a good boy and everybody was shocked by this. So I agree with you. To the person who answered the poll, I agree with you because I don't know. So if you missed that episode, the link to that one will be in the show notes below so you can go back and review that. And I think 2 weeks ago, I did have a case. It was 3 cases. One of them was the mother leaves the toddler alone so she can go get cosmetic surgery. Remember, that toddler was just aimlessly walking around the apartment complex by himself. The other one was this guy who did AI generated porn. CP. The last word is porn, the first word starts with a C. And then the third one in that episode was this guy defrauded Lowe's out of $4,500 worth of merchandise. So somebody did comment on that one. I think they commented on the AI generated CP. Butcher Pete said, that theater guy is sick. He needs to be on a serious watch list for child predators. Jessica, unbelievable. She thought she had a leg to stand on. So the Jessica one was the woman who left her child so she can do cosmetic surgery. And this was like a 3-year-old or something that she left alone. She left him with like a phone, I think, and was like, call mommy if you need anything, and went to get cosmetic surgery. If you haven't heard that one, which it's 3 episodes of just pure crazy, go ahead and click on that in the show notes below. Also, I have that down there. Comment came in and said, I don't know how to feel about this. This is on the AI generated CP. I don't know how to feel about this. The person said, CP is wrong, but this is AI C porn and it's fake and not real. So I hear that, but at the same time, what I told this person was it's the thought that was put into it. And even the thought of seeing those types of images, that's horrendous. So like, even if it's not real CP, I couldn't see myself literally typing in. So for AI to generate something, you have to type in a prompt. So you have to have in your head what you want to see. So you're typing this in like, hey, AI, can you draw me a picture of a 3-year-old in this kind of, like, I couldn't even do that. So I understand it's fake and not real, but the person doing it, the thoughts in his head still makes it real for him. Do you understand? So the person responded that it's like lolly, which I don't know what that is, but they said it's anime children, but no one hates on it. But they see my point though. I've never heard of lolly, but that's still, I mean, is that something that's really like out there like that? Do a lot of people look at this lolly thing? But still, even so, I think if I had a friend that looked at lolly or whatever, I would literally side-eye them, and I don't think we'd be friends anymore. So to me, it's the same thing. Just because people make something wrong the norm doesn't make it less wrong. It's still wrong. It's just that people made it the norm. It's still wrong. And then in another Florida Man episode, remember I told y'all the case of a doctor who killed his patient by removing his liver instead of his spleen? Well, one listener did have something to say about that. They said, I didn't pass anatomy, so forgive me if this is a ridiculous question, but how do you confuse the liver for the spleen? To which you can't. They're, number one, on different sides of the body, and number two, the liver is so much bigger than the spleen. So that begs the question, how did this Thomas Sheknowski graduate from his medical school? You couldn't tell the spleen from the liver? You don't know what side of the body the liver is on or how big a spleen is? I know in the story he said he thought the spleen had swollen or something. Like the logical thing was, well, maybe this isn't the spleen, being that it's on the opposite side of the body. So you're trying to tell me his spleen traveled and grew? Logic would tell me it's more you're at the wrong place. And then my other thing is, aren't there nurses and a bunch of people surrounding doctors while they're working on a patient? Why didn't they say, wait, doc, that's the liver? Why didn't they stop him? I just thought about that. And I know in these other comments, I'm not naming names. And that's because I'm on a different platform getting these comments. And I don't know if people want me to call out their names, but I just want to get the comments out there. I respect everybody's privacy. And if you don't want me to say your name, I'm not going to say your name. So the other story I had for you was the Florida teacher who was arrested for allegedly, as they say, even though there's a picture. If you haven't heard this episode, first of all, everything that I'm saying is in the show notes below if you haven't heard these episodes. And if you want to see this picture that they're trying to say allegedly, then head on over to our Patreon, or you can go to our Facebook group. Both links are in the show notes below. I do have the picture in there. But the teacher allegedly placed a 3-year-old autistic boy in a chokehold because he wouldn't stop crying. And then while he's screaming now, she just continues reading to the students. So someone said, these teachers these days can't be trusted. They do the most horrible things. I won't say all, but yeah. There are some teachers that do that, and I think the problem with that is because the people who actually are teachers and went to school for teachers and have the patience for students, they're not paying them enough. And then the new rules that are in place where you can't even punish a student. I'm not saying punch them in their throat or anything, but you can't even punish a student without you getting in trouble. And these children know that you can't do you ain't my mama, you ain't gonna do shit. And they know this, so they're not gonna listen. It's like, you can't win. So this is what I'm thinking. So I asked the person, why do you think that is? What do you think has changed between teachers now and teachers back in the day? And they said, well, back then teachers did the same things, but it was mostly covered up or didn't come to light until later on. There are some teachers who did that back then. Yes, I think teachers were more sadistic back in the day. I hear stories my mom tells me of getting hit with the long edge of a ruler or whatever, the sharp edge of a ruler on her fingertips or something. Craziness. But yeah, I guess now we have cameras and phones, and accessible forms of communication where you can show what's going on. So maybe that is it. But I also think back in the day, teachers were able to discipline, like getting suspended or get an ISS, in-school suspension, or, stuff like this. So children were more afraid of getting in trouble. In addition, I think parents were less about blaming the teacher and more about understanding that they need to parent their children. So I think these factors also played a part in it. But yes, back in the day, there were teachers who did crazy crap and nobody reported them. What do y'all think? What do you think changed between teachers now and teachers back in the day? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I may read your comment on an episode of Love and Murder. I try to keep them all, so Florida Man to Florida Man, midweek mini to midweek mini, and full episode comments to full episodes. So I try to keep it like that. So I want to hear from you. What did you think of the first 2 episodes I gave? What did you think about the mentally challenged person being charged? I'm going to put out a poll. Do you think it was right for them to charge the mentally challenged person? Yes or no? And whatever other comments you have for me, leave it below so I can read it on a future episode. I love reading your comments. I love interacting with my lambs. And that is all I have for you today. Don't forget that if you do want to support Love and Murder monetarily, then you can sign up to our Patreon to get bonuses, case extras, and stuff like that. Patreon.com/. But if you cannot do that, then a free and easy way to support Lamb is by simply sharing this episode. We have a saying that you share this episode with everyone you know and everyone you don't. So go ahead and share it to your friends and then share it to your social media. And that is all I have for you in today's episode, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.